Why do people love a good withdrawal story? As you can see, this isn't my normal setup. I'm in a place called Carity Wood near Tonbridge. It's like a getaway centre where we've come for my counselling course. So I've got all the first year level 4s here. And I had a conversation with one of my classmates last night that made me think about this again. The classic, someone putting their worst ever withdrawal story online. It's a bit clickbaity. I know I've done some myself, but it got me thinking about what I am prepared and not prepared to put on this channel. And more importantly, what's actually going to help people. Because these people who go, I had this worst experience, I stopped drinking and I had hallucinations, I had the sweats, I had the DTs, I had seizures, all that stuff. Is that really going to help someone get sober? And in my view, it doesn't. Because the simple reason is, and everyone knows the phrase, we learn by our mistakes. No one ever thinks that what happened to someone else is going to happen to them. No one has that one drink thinking it's going to turn into a big session, thinking that big session is going to turn into a 4-week, 8-week, several month bender. No one plans for that to happen. They don't think it's going to happen, they don't plan for that to happen. And even if they have seen all those worst videos, all those worst stories, heard all the worst experiences, I think the best people really learn from that is not really learn from it. It's just a reminder that I need to make sure that this time it doesn't get that bad so that doesn't happen. But they think that before they've had the first drink, before it's turned into a big session, before it's turned into days, weeks, months long bender. And the conversation I had with my classmate last night, as said, it was about what I'm prepared and not prepared to put on this channel. I obviously think about my future as a counsellor, and I want to be a little restrained of what I put on here. Obviously, I'm always trying to be open and truthful, but I don't have to tell the worst stories. I don't have to go to the deepest, darkest places. Because this isn't about shock stories. It's about learning to relate to people. And if all I do is put the worst story out there, then someone who maybe isn't there yet, who maybe hasn't had it that bad, might think, well, he's way worse than me, I'm never going to go that bad, I'm not at that stage yet, so I don't need to listen. So I kind of try and keep it general. I try and keep it relatable. Because while you won't learn from a shock story, you will learn by relating to people. You will think there's bits in there that remind me of how I felt, of how I behaved. And most of our behaviour isn't the worst of it. Not most of our life was spent in heavy withdrawal, in the worst of a bender or a relapse, most of the time is just spent living everyday life. Most of it's just spent with all those reasons that made us drink, all those things that made us uncomfortable with who we were, all those things that made us nervous, afraid around the people in our lives, around the things that we did, the situations that we found ourselves in. So to help someone, I don't need to have a clickbait, gory story. It won't do them any good. What's going to stop someone having another drink? It isn't the worst bits. It isn't singular worst bits. I even know from my own experience. When I came into recovery, I spent 3 years relapsing. All I learnt from one relapse was don't do it like that. So I'd relapse in a slightly different way, for slightly different reasons. And it all led me back to the same place, the same feeling, that I didn't like who I was, I didn't like the way I was living. And ultimately, after 10 relapses, deciding that the only way for me was to stop drinking completely. You know, I did have horrible situations. I did end up in hospital. I did end up in rehabs. But I don't need to tell you how gory each of those little things were, because none of them stopped me drinking. So why would they stop you drinking? You didn't even have the experience. So hearing about it isn't going to make you change your mind about maybe having that first drink next time. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I'm not going to sit here and tell you how bad it is to go through withdrawals and have the shakes and the sweats and maybe seizures and DTs. You're going to have to learn from your own experiences, your own mistakes. You might not even learn from those mistakes. Now, there's the other aspect of this, that yes, we learn from our own mistakes, but I've had a lot of help. And when I've heard other people tell their stories, it wasn't when they told me about their relapse or their withdrawals or the time they got arrested or the time they got into a fight that made me relate to them. It was when they said, despite all that chaos that might have happened, I felt that certain way underneath, in between the drinks, in between the chaos, in between the relapses. That's what I related to. That's what made me stop feeling like it was just me. And when you hear those other people say, and when I stopped drinking, things started to change. That's what gives you the hope that you can come out the other end. That despite what we've been through, despite the way we felt, despite the chaos, despite all that, you can come out of it and you can learn to overcome those negatives that held you back, made you feel afraid, made you feel uncomfortable, made you feel nervous, made you feel unloved, made you feel rejected. You can start to overcome those and maybe live a better life. And I'm doing bits of that now. You know, I'm away on this weekend away with nearly 40 people. Some of them I know quite well, some of them I've met for the first time yesterday. But if you'd asked me, 6 years ago, could I go away and stay with 40 people in a relatively confined space, this woods area, Carity Wood, could I go through that talk about things personal to me, have social conversations, sit down at a table with a mix of people I've known for a few years, some people I've only met yesterday, and not have a drink? I said, you what? I'm like, no, I can't do that social stuff with people I either do or don't know. I've got to smuggle some drink in. I couldn't do life without drink before, and here I am, 3.5 years sober, training to be a counsellor, on a weekend away, getting to know strangers, and in my break, making a YouTube video for my channel. So yeah, that title might have been a bit clickbaity, but the subject isn't. Because I don't need to tell you my worst gruesome story. I just need to keep doing what I'm doing. And if you got something from this, leave a comment or like, whatever, the clicky stuff. But for now, I'll leave it there. Bye.